Hiya, this is Doug from Behind Closed Doors, and today I'm going to be doing a video on Erin Pizzey. She's an amazing woman who speaks out against feminism and the destruction that the family court have on society. Generational violence is a problem for families, but the feminists don't want you to be thinking about generational violence and individuals' behaviour. They want you to be thinking about sex. The feminist movement is a terrible ideology. It pits men and women against each other. It makes out that women have been oppressed and therefore they need to be compensated. It's a load of rubbish. I'm going to be doing several videos on feminism and the history of it and how destructive it's been on society. But it plays a pivotal role in the family court setting. Because feminism doesn't just hurt men, it also hurts children and it also hurts women themselves. It's a very destructive, ideological, political campaign. I've edited this together and I'll link in the description below the original speech that she gave and some other ones so that you can go and check out more of her stuff from the original video creators. I hope you find this helpful in some way.
But when I heard what was going on in the collectives, and I heard this, the most chilling phrase to me, and I called it the planned destruction of the family, was that what was said is the new parenting, the new structure would be women and children. That would be the new movement. And men would be disenfranchised because marriage was no longer a safe place, had never been a safe place for women and children. The women's movement has no interest in domestic violence. Its only main interest is and always has been money. And until you grasp that, then you don't really understand what's going on. I had to look at women who were just like my mother, incapable of mothering. She had 3 children. She never wanted daughters, she got twins. She just wanted a son, but she only wanted her son until he was about 7, and he became a little rumbustious, noisy boy. And then she just dropped him for the rest of his life. He never really recovered from what she did to him. And to a certain extent, obviously it affected my sister and myself. People are not for hitting. Children are people too. And on the T-shirts of the kids, we would put that sticker. So when the mother lifted her hand, that sticker was there to remind her. I wrote the first book in the world on domestic violence. It was called Scream Quietly or the Neighbors Will Hear. It's not a gender issue. It has nothing to do with patriarchy. That's a whole made-up nonsense. It's actually fraud. At that point, before I actually opened the refuge, the women's movement, both across the Western world, became a very fashionable thing to do. And they did get funding, as thousands of women paid to join this movement. In England, it cost you £3 10 shillings, which is quite a lot of money, actually, in the 70s. But that money was running out, so they needed further funding. And this, I knew, would happen. It's a perfect issue for a feminist movement who say all men are violent. And it's a perfect funding issue, because as long as you make sure that the women are told and everybody is brainwashed into thinking of women as victims, then you have an income and it will become jobs for the girls. And of course, the recruiting areas were in all universities across the Western world. That's where the women professors began the whole women's studies and excluding men. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And as women went into law, they began to change the law, as you know, completely illegal, much of what they've done. Because what they've done is to take a man's right to be innocent before he's proven guilty. That's been taken away. A man, no women, a man has to prove his innocence. And that is the most shocking thing, I think, that has happened in the last 40 years. All now a woman has to do is pick up the phone and he's finished. And I remember the women explaining to me that the man comes home at night, finds everything's gone. That's called hoovering. She's disappeared with the children. He has no right to know where she is. All he can be told is, she's safe, this is the police, she's safe. Second part of it that made it so difficult is then it's called the silver bullet. If it doesn't get fast enough, then you say that he's molested the children. We hired, actually to begin with, it was nuns. They were brilliant and comforting, and they would go and visit any father who suddenly found himself without children. We arranged supervised access if the father had been told he couldn't see the children, and as long as we realized that he wasn't dangerous. And actually, there was no reason, because by the time the man who had suddenly found himself in this position had come to ask for help, and you actually touch him and you say, look, I'm really sorry this is happening to you, man will then sit down and explain. And one of the most important things is to actually work. We have to take, as far as I'm concerned, we have to take all this out of the hands of courts, out of the hands of lawyers, and we have to put it where it belongs. And it belongs in a whole new era where we look at a totally different way of how we take care of each other. To say there are other ways of handling this, because I used to call it orgasmic rage, because once she'd exploded and done the damage that she did to her partner or to her children, then came the calm. So 10 o'clock in the morning, the kids went off with the play staff, who were usually virtually all men, with some women working with them. That's the first time the children knew good, kind, gentle men. And they're forbidden in refuges. The shelter movement will not allow men to work directly with children, or even sometimes to come into the shelters. And I have been in here, when I was here last with Anne, we were talking about the fact that the shelter movement is actually bunkers that could brainwash women into this whole concept that they have to remain victims. And actually, they learn very quickly, if they dare to try and take responsibility for their behavior, they will be in big trouble with the sisterhood. So I had to make a decision. Was I going to join in with this massive battle against the feminists from the very beginning, or was I going to do what mattered to me and to my heart? And I chose, because I knew I wasn't going to win this battle. They were so highly organized that what I needed to do was to actually work directly with men and women and children. And I think a lot of you know what I'm saying. All of us are responsible for the choices we make. I used to say to the mothers, first choice can be an accident. The second can be careless. But time you do it third time, you've really got to look at what you're doing and why you're doing it.